So this is the block that we're going to make. I made this one up the other day just to give you an example. So later on I'll be able to show you what the stitches look like. This is the pattern. So you need to start by finding your pattern. The pattern that you're going to use probably, I don't know, sometimes they're going to be small. You're going to have to tape them together, and that's what I've done with this one. What I like about this particular block is that everything is actually repeated. So you'll see that the patterns actually repeat around. Some of them are in reverse. So I've already drawn these two pieces. So now I'm going to draw this piece. You're going to take your fusible interfacing. So in this case, I have the fusible tricot, which is that one with a little bit of stretch in it. I'm going to lay it down on my pattern, and voila, I can see right through it. So now I'm just going to trace it. Now I'm using a permanent marking pen, and that's okay because you're not going to see it when I'm done. But you can see how I've drawn. I can actually see that design. I need to make 4 of these, so I'm just going to repeat. And I'll finish that one later, but I do need to make one for the center, this little funny star in the middle here. There you go. After your pieces are all drawn, then you're going to sew it to your fabric. So these are the pieces that I've drawn earlier, and I've placed them down onto the right side of the fabric. So you want the right side of the fabric up, and then the fusible interfacing is down on the right side of the fabric. It's very important. If you do it the other way, you'll end up pressing your iron onto the fusible of the interfacing. So right side of fabric to the fusible bumps. Now I'm going to take it to my sewing machine. Now I've set my sewing machine up with a little bit of a smaller stitch length. I've got mine set up at a 2.0. I also have my open toe applique foot on, which I'll show you a little bit later. Just makes it easier to see the lines. One thing that you want to keep in mind when you're doing this is don't force the fabric as you're turning it. You want to stitch a little bit, stop with your needle down, lift your presser foot, and turn. Stitch a bit, stop with the needle down, and turn. If you try to force it around, you'll cause a bunch of wrinkles and your piece just won't be pretty. So take your time going around the piece, trying to get as smooth of curves as you can. When I'm done getting some of these stitched down, we'll come back and I'll show you how we turn the applique pieces. All right, so I've sewn around just a couple of them. I'm just going to cut off some of the excess fabric. These are the 2 little pieces that I'm going to show you how to turn. Okay. There. Now we're going to use the pinking shears. What the pinking shears are going to do is they're going to make the pinked edge. So that little zigzag edge, that is going to make the turn, when you actually turn these pieces, it's going to make them very, very smooth. You're going to be able to get very smooth inside and outside curves. So I'm going to take them, when I'm doing the pinking shears, I'm coming pretty close to the thread. You can see the thread there. I've got to get pretty close to it. I don't know how close is too close. I just know that if you're too far away, you won't get a really nice smooth edge on your piece. So there's one little guy and the other. Oops, I almost went too close. And so by using the pinking shears, you're not having to go back and make little clips and valleys for your applique, okay? Now I'm going to use my bigger shears, and I'm going to just trim off a little bit more on this point, okay? Now for this particular design, these little pieces are actually going to be underneath this vine. So because they're going to be under the vine, I'm actually just going to take and cut off this little point. It'll just make it a lot easier to turn that. Okay. Now I'm going to take my rather sharp scissors and I'm going to cut a long hole. The next step is turning the piece. All right, my pieces are all sewed around. And I've cut them out with the pinking shears, so I've got my little peaks and valleys so that my corners will be turned nice and smooth when I turn them. Now, when I first started doing this technique, I would use a straw and a crochet hook. to actually turn these inside out, and then I was introduced to the Turn It All tool, so now I have 3 sizes. It makes it a lot easier. The idea is you're going to take the tube and put it inside the little piece that you made. Then you're going to use the stick. And if you hold that stick down into the tube, whoops, sometimes it's a bigger piece and you could literally shove it into the tube, but most of the time it's only just enough to hold it that little bit. Once you get that little bit turned, then you can turn it the rest of the way. You'd be surprised the tiny little pieces you can turn using that little turn it all technique. Now I have to turn the pointy end. For the pointy end, I'm going to use my hemostat. So I'm going to take my hemostat, I'm going to push it into the pointy end, and then I'm going to take and grab some of that fabric at the very tip, and now I can just pull it out. After I've got the majority of it turned, now I have to smooth out these little edges. So for that, I might use my wooden tool to come in and kind of get those little edges out. Little tip here, when you're doing this little turning part, make it so the tool is on the fabric, not on the interfacing. If you actually put it on the interfacing, you probably are going to poke through the interfacing. So keep that point on the fabric on the inside, and it can roll all the way around the edges. When you get to the pointy side again, now I can use my purple Thang and push that out, because this little tip will actually be underneath the vine, so that can be a raw edge. So I've got my piece all turned. Next, I'm going to show you how to mark your background fabric. Thanks for watching our video. Be sure you subscribe to our channel. We wouldn't want you to miss a single one. Leave a comment. We would love to hear from you.